Hi, welcome to Splash and Go. Nate Ryan here with Kyle Petty. NASCAR heading to Chicagoland Speedway this weekend. NBC picks up the NASCAR and NBC schedule. You're heading to Chicago tomorrow as well, right?
Headed to prison tomorrow. Yes, I am. We're going up to shoot the opening, so I'm going up a little bit earlier. So excited about that. But I'm excited about Chicago. Slide job, people. There we go.
This is scene of one of the best finishes of 2018, if not the best finish. Kyle Larson pulled the slide job on Kyle Busch on the last lap. Didn't work. Kyle Busch came back, slammed him out of the way, wins the race. So this year, Kyle, lower horsepower, higher downforce. Chances we'll see slide job part 2 on the last lap this year, or do you think it'll be a different scenario?
You know, it's going to be interesting. I am, after the race last year, and what we've seen from this package, the lower horsepower, the downforce, what we have, I hope we see a slide job every lap. You know what I mean? I mean, because it's obviously that kind of package where, and that type of really the front stretch more than the back stretch, but the front stretch where you can really get a run, catch two guys running side by side, draft out around them and slide up in front of them and just drive off. And you know they're going to be running all but wide open. But, you know, the summers and the winters are rough on that racetrack, so it could be it's going to depend on how the grip level, what the grip level is when we get there. But I do believe Texas was a better race for me watching the Texas race than it had ever been.
Right.
Than it had ever been. Right. And all the years they've been going there, front to rear, if I look at the entire field. So I look at Chicago and I think Chicago was a pretty dang good race last year with those rules. So if Texas upped this ante and some of these other mile-and-a-halves have, if Chicago does it, it'll be a great race.
Well, Chicago has yet to be paved since it opened in 2001, so very rough pavement. Like you mentioned, the seasonal changes can affect it a lot with the rough winters, harsh winters, and hot summers. And weather conditions could be a factor this weekend. Texas was a daytime race. That produced, I think, an interesting outcome. But I think that the general consensus this year, Kyle, with this package from NASCAR drivers has been cooler conditions. Nighttime races like Kansas, like the 600, have been more conducive to better racing with this package. Do you think there's some kernel of truth to that, or how do you feel about that?
Well, I think the guys, as a driver, when the cooler temperatures, a little bit more grip in the racetrack, you're able to use all the downforce and all the engine that you have, every bit of it, all of it. When it's a little slick and you're trying to maximize your downforce, but you're slick and you're having to ease off the gas and the car raises up a little bit, you lose naturally some downforce just as you lift. So you're not maximizing horsepower and downforce. And I think, God forbid, you're having to drive the car. Okay, that's what it boils down to in a lot of cases. So the thing is, and I say this, and it's hard to explain to people, but if I'm putting out 100% and I'm running 30-second laps, if I'm putting out 98%, I could drop off to 31-second laps.
Right.
Because the sluggish engine, waiting on the car to rotate, waiting on things, it's a big gap. It's not just a little bit. It's not just a little bit anymore. So I think that's why the guys like the cooler temperatures and they like the grip, is because they're there. They're on top of it 100% every lap, and it shows on the racetrack. When you're off a little bit with this package, you're way off.
Right. Kyle Larson, unfortunately, has been one of those drivers who has been off maybe more often than he'd like with this new package. Again, he goes there coming off that great finish with Kyle Busch last year. We've got Ryan Newman, who just finished top 10 at Sonoma. He's in that cutoff line right ahead of Jimmy Johnson, Eric Jones behind him. So with 10 races to go in regular season, some big names right around that playoff cutoff line.
Yeah, huge names. And you know, I really would have thought, I really would have thought that Kyle Larson and this package would have just been hand in glove. That something would have happened. But he's had terrible luck. I mean, some self-induced, I have to say that, but at the same time, some just, you know, if a meteor is going to fall in the middle of a race, it's going to hit his car. It's that kind of thing, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I look at Jimmy and those guys have just not gotten on track. I look at Ryan Newman. They've had some really bright spots. But at the same time, their dark spots have been just as bad. You know what I mean? I mean, they've had some bad races. The one I scratch my head over as much as Kyle Larson is Eric Jones. Eric Jones had the potential, has the potential to be a superstar. We saw it in the Xfinity. We've seen it everywhere he's been as he's made his way. But for some reason, can't get on track, can't get hooked up. And how many times have we seen those guys cut a tire and be the first car out of the race? I mean, 2 or 3 times this year. They have been the first or second car in an accident, the first or second caution. And then I look at the other end of the spectrum. Denny Hamlin's just having his typical year. I'll pop off a win every now and then, and I'll run bad, and then I'll run good. That's Denny's year. But his other 2 teammates are the dominant 2 cars. So when you hold up a mirror between Kyle Busch and Martin Truex and Eric Jones, there's a huge discrepancy. So I think that makes his glaring omission from the top 16 look just huge. So it's going to be tough for these guys. This is the summer grind, man. We're in that summer grind, and we talk about it. We talked about it with Steve Letarte. This is where whatever the amount of points you have and what you've done, win-wise, you just kind of maintain for this stretch until there's 4 or 5 races before the playoffs. You just kind of maintain. And he's maintaining an 18th or 19th. That's not good. He needs to build, and it's tough to build this time of year.
Because the pressure's on, the playoffs are approaching, and it's not going to get any cooler between now and the beginning of September. All right, well, certainly a lot to watch this weekend with all of those drivers at Chicagoland Speedway. And, of course, NASCAR and NBC picks up the schedule this weekend, Chicagoland Speedway. And you can watch daily NASCAR America, 5 p.m. on NBCSN. Thanks for watching Splash and Go.
Hey Motorsports fans, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe before you go for all the latest news and highlights across motorsports.